Alright, welcome. Today I'm working on this 2000 Hyundai Sonata. Got a check engine light. Engine's running terrible. And I got a severe vibration in the front end. So I'm starting with the check engine light. It's a sensor code is a P, or a check engine light code is a P0340, which is for a camshaft position sensor a circuit malfunction. I noticed that when I was driving the car, it would stutter, stall. You'd go to accelerate, and it would start to accelerate, then it would pause, and then suddenly catch up. What you see right here, that's where the cam sensor is located. Thought I would just do some initial visual inspection, which is always the best thing to do whenever possible. Look at all this oil that's covering the sensor. I thought this was kind of odd, and lo and behold, this whole inside of the sensor is completely full of oil. Sorry if it's a little difficult to see, but the plug was full of oil, and also the sensor pigtails. And as you see right here, we also have a bunch of heat shrink. So the connector pigtail has been replaced at some point in the past. And at this point, I'm not really sure what exactly the issue is. I am suspecting that the oil in the sensor pigtail is definitely probably a consideration. As to how it got there, I wasn't sure yet, but what I wanted to do was also look at all the wiring, as it was covered in gunk and grease. I wanted to make sure we didn't have any bare wires that were shorting out or causing a sensor problem. And so moving on, I'll get to that solution here later, but that's for the front end shake to the right front upper ball joint. You can see just how loose it was, and it also the brake rotors were warped, and the customer opted to take care of those themselves for their own specific reason. And I'll tell you what, after driving down the road and attempting to slow down, the combination of warped rotors and that ball joint being as loose as it was, I don't get too scared too often while driving a car, but I got pretty nervous. In fact, actually, at one point, I just opted to try and slow the car down using the emergency brake handle, because a lot of you may know what it's like to slow down in a car with warped rotors. You kind of get that pulsing feeling. Well, when you get that pulsing feeling, and then you have one wheel that has that much slop in the ball joints, it amplifies things pretty drastically. And forgive me for not getting that on camera. I'm still getting used to using a camera while I'm doing the work, so that is why things aren't as fluid. Again, I'll follow up with you here towards the end when I get the about what happened with the cam sensor signal. This is me just taking apart the upper control arms. It is an integral assembly, so I have to replace the whole control arm. And what I thought was interesting was actually the general design of this control arm setup, and actually kind of made it kind of nice. You can see here where you have your standard. Look how noisy that is. Yep, super tight, super noisy. Obviously that wasn't the main problem, it was this ball joint. And so I thought it was interesting the way Hyundai designed this upper control arm assembly. And in some ways, it's actually kind of nice for how it installs. As you can see, it has those those large pins that actually go up through the strut tower body and bolt in kind of like a strut assembly. And then I can tighten up the actual control arm nut and bolt. have to do here is there's a nut and bolt that goes, the bolt starts from the inside and goes outward, and the nuts are on the outside of the control arm, where the control arm mounts to those larger mounting, what do I call them, pins, locating pins, support pins. I'm not really certain. Again, like I said, this is kind of first time I've ever seen a upper control arm assembly that kind of looks like that. Made it kind of nice for installing and removing, so I didn't have to actually take these bolts all the way out and trying to fish them through the coil assembly. So what I'm doing here, I'm just getting all the slack removed. I'm just getting them snugged up just a little bit, because actually what you want to do is tighten down those mount bolts with the weight of the vehicle on that suspension, so the angles, the geometry mimics as best as possible what it's like with the vehicle sitting on the ground. If I were to, obviously with the suspension hanging down some, if I were to tighten down those two mounting bolts as tight as possible, then sometimes that can create premature wear down the road. And of course, as always, as anything seems to do with auto repair, I almost didn't get my ratchet out there. That was a close one. So here I am. I got some wood blocks. I'm going to put them under the front knuckle assembly so I can lower the weight of the vehicle on and compress that suspension so that geometry of the upper control arm is where it needs to be. So anyway, so what I ended up having to do was the nut was a 14 millimeter and the head of the bolt was a 16 millimeter, and so I could kind of get them, use them how I wanted. I ended up just having to get a 14 and a 16 of a standard box end wrench, and then a 14 and 16 of my ratcheting wrench, my Matco ratcheting wrenches. So again, what I'll do is I'll just sum up. This is me just tightening back up. What the fix for the cam sensor issue ended up being was I cleaned out the pigtail in the sensor. The reason why there was oil in it is that the O-ring on the sensor was completely failed. Like, it had no resistance when I went to push it back into the cylinder head. So I replaced the O-ring, cleaned out the sensor, and it's been running great. I just wanted to say thank you for watching. Please forgive me for if it's a little rudimentary or maybe I missed some things. Again, I am getting used to using a camera while I'm working and setting things up, and then making sure I get the whole, quote unquote picture and story. But if there's anything that you guys would like to see, please feel free to leave a comment, and please like and subscribe. And I am still on my way to, I'm on the path to putting out more of this content, and where I'm trying to be different from other YouTube channels that talk about this kind of stuff. And also, if you also are interested, I will be providing some, just like an ASMR video of this where I don't even talk at all. It's just me working. Let me know what you think.